Book. Movie. Game.
Are you for real?
Absolutely.
Hey, this is Book Movie Game, and I'm Jem with the Classes.
I'm Russ.
Hey, this is our special post-PAX edition of Book Movie Game. We just got back from PAX this week, so we're pretty tired. I sound very graveler, but I refuse to say that I'm sick. So PAX was really awesome. There were a ton of board games there, a ton of card games there, obviously video games. But I was surprised at how many board and card games there were. There were tournaments, which I almost wanted to sign up for, but then I didn't want to be trapped in a tournament all day. Well, assuming that I went on, but still, get trapped in a tournament all day and not to get to see all the stuff there was to see, so I didn't do that.
Yeah, it was amazing. Just talking about board games, I mean, Steve Jackson games were there. We got to demo a new Bill and Ted's game that was really cool. We went to Mayfair Games and saw some really cool Settlers of Catan stuff that I'd never seen before. There were just all kinds of games. Jen got a new edition of Gloom that she'd never seen before, so it was just a really fun time. And like Jen said too, it was hard to sign up for something that was going to go on too long because there were so many panels and so many things that you wanted to see that it literally was just impossible to see everything. It was great. I got to meet my favorite Twitch streamer, Man vs. Game, which was really cool. Got to demo Elder Scroll Legends card game, which I won, so I get to beta test now, which is also pretty cool. But yeah, it was just a fantastic weekend and a great time of just meeting a lot of cool people.
I'd say if you decide to go to PAX, I mean, try and plan it a little bit, but when you get there, it's just going to be different than what you think it's going to be. And just resign yourself to the fact that you're not going to get to see everything. There's no way you can see every panel or go and see every booth. Like, literally, we were there all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Sunday, walking around, I still found booths that I was like, how did I not know this was there? In fact, in my stream the other night, when I was talking about PAX, someone asked me if I saw this specific game. And I'm like, what is that? And they're like, well, it was at PAX. It's a big deal. It's a new point and click. And I didn't even know they were there because there's so much going on that you can't really take it all in. So you just kind of have to be relaxed about it and see what you want to see. Take breaks, come back and see some more stuff. I saw several panels. I got to talk to a lot of game designers. Super fun time.
Yeah, it was fantastic. If you get a chance to go to PAX, definitely do. Just so much cool stuff you can't even imagine.
Russ and I got to play this really cool, was it a Steve Jackson game?
Mm-hmm.
Which was totally awful for my dyslexia, but it was like a Bill and Ted's game, like a time-based game. And the way it works is you're just turning your piece around constantly and moving based on where the arrow is on your piece. So for me, I'm like, okay, I have all these cards in front of me. This one says turn left, turn right, back one, forward, but it all depends on where the arrow is on your little figurine. And it was a fun game, but I was like, oh gosh, my dyslexia is going nuts. Like, where am I going? And so for me to try and plan out where my piece was going to go, that was a nightmare. But I thought the game concept was really fun. It was fun to play.
Yeah, we got to just demo so much cool stuff, and it was awesome.
I don't have to be good at a game to really like it. It was fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, since this is not the PAX podcast, but Book Movie Game, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'll go ahead and start today with a book. My book today is called Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews. Now, I know Jen's going to call foul on a combo here, but I learned about this through the movie, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. The dad is played by Nick Offerman.
Wait, you can't do two movies.
I'm not doing two movies. I'm explaining how I learned about the book. So, Nick Offerman plays the dad. Molly Shannon's in it. It's a really fantastic movie, which was so good that it made me want to read the book. And so I got the book by Jesse Andrews.
If you guys could see my face right now, it's not a happy face.
Well, Book Movie Game's just not enough. I have to have more categories. I have to do
No.
book. So today it's book, movie game for me.
No.
So Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and it's really hard to talk about this without just kind of giving up a lot of the story, so I'm going to, because
spoilers.
Really the surprises are in the relationships and things. There's not too many surprises in the book. But it's about a kid named Greg Gaines, who's just your average high school senior, doesn't really know what he's going to do with his future or where he's going to go to college. His dad's a sociology professor, and they're really kind of pressuring him to figure out what he wants to do with his life. And then one of his friends at school, Rachel Kushner, she gets cancer, and so Greg's mom really encourages him to go spend time with Rachel and hang out with her, and he feels kind of weird about that since they don't really know each other, so it's sort of this uncomfortable thing, like, I know I never gave you the time of day, but now that you have cancer, let's hang out. It's a little awkward at first, and he writes that really, really well. Really understands the teenage mind. So they hang out for a while, and they become really good friends. And there's this other guy named Earl, who's been friends with Greg for a long time, and they sort of make these spoof movies based on all these Hollywood movies, and they're ridiculous and they're really funny. And so they all three basically wind up being really good friends, and they have all kinds of cool stuff. I said Greg's dad is a sociology professor, and he's really funny. And so he was like, I could tell something's up with Earl the other day. I offered him some of my rabbit andouille sausage, and he refused. He usually loves that stuff. It's just really fun stuff like that. The dad's a really cool character, and it's just a really, really fun book that I enjoyed. I almost said movie.
Even
book.
though you did a Nick Offerman impression.
Did I do a Nick Offerman impression? Well, listen, when I read the book...
Did I, last podcast, somehow get away with recommending a code, not an actual game for the game?
Did you?
No, you did.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I also recommended a TV series, but hey, that's all water under the bridge.
Cheating.
All water under the book movie game bridge. No more cheating, I promise. So anyways, it's just a really good book. It's really touching. A lot of people actually knock the book, saying that it's too similar to
The Fault in Our Stars.
The Fault in Our Stars, that's the one. But it really goes different places, and just because it's about a teenager with cancer, it doesn't mean it's the same book, and it was really an enjoyable read. He used some really interesting literary techniques that are not common, and I think you would enjoy reading it. So there it is, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews. Most definitely a book. All right, Jen, do you have a book for us today?
Yeah, actually I do. So I wanted to take the time and actually do a theme this time instead of doing half themes. So it's kind of just, I really love the Regency period. I think Jane Austen is something that I really love a lot. I love the Horatio Hornblower series. So there's a lot of things I kind of love about that time period. And it's a big part of, I think, my childhood and the kind of things I was watching and reading. And so the book I'm going to recommend is His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novak. It came out in 2006. The series is still ongoing, and there's new books. There's a new book coming out soon, or just came out. I love this book because it's kind of an alternate history. Like, what if we, if it was 1805 and we had, and technically I think this is not the Regency period, but what if it was 1805 and England had, not we, because we're not in England, but if England had a navy and then they had an aerial force, and everybody did because they all had dragons. And so it sounds a little bit like, oh, dragons. But she does it so incredibly well. Like, it's really hard to write a good alternate history. I think a bad example of this for me personally was Abraham Lincoln and Vampires. Like, I did not enjoy that book. I felt like he didn't spend as much time on the Abraham Lincoln history as he probably should have. But she did such an amazing job with all of the historical points. It sort of feels like an alternate, I don't know if you know of the Horatio Hornblower series, an alternate history of that a little bit. So Captain William Lawrence is a Navy captain. He's been brought up to be in the Navy. And back then, too, there was a lot of, the way they did inheritances and things, it just, trying to get your kid, you had to get them into a trade, or you had to leave them money, so he goes into the Navy. And he loves the Navy, and he's a very strict, naval man, but in a kind of compassionate way. And essentially what happens is they take a French ship, and they are way far from home, and the Navy back then, one of the things they would do is you would take prizes of other ships. So if you captured ships and you could keep them, the crew got a percentage of that, and it was a win for your country, because then your country could re-outfit that ship and send it back out. So when they take this French ship, it's like sinking. It's a very small ship. They go inside there, and it has a dragon egg. And this is like a super big deal because dragons are not hard to come by, but they're expensive, and each country kind of has their own breeds, like things that they've done for strength or speed or spitting fire or spitting acid. And England needs more dragons, and to add a French dragon to the breeding program is huge for them. So basically they're still pretty far away from the shore, and they sort of realize, crap, this thing is hatching. And they don't really know that much about dragons. They don't really know, they know it has to bond with a person. They don't really know what they're supposed to do with it. But they do know that feral dragons will just fly away, and they could lose a major piece, could change the whole war. So it's kind of this interesting dynamic. They all draw lots. Nobody wants to be the dragon handler, because in society, the dragon handlers are sort of looked down upon. They're considered to not have good manners. They're considered to not have very good lives and kind of be a slave to these giant beasts. So they all kind of draw lots, and unfortunately, the person that gets the short straw is this kid. So when the dragon hatches, he approaches with a harness they've cobbled together, because that's what they kind of know. They're like, has to bond to a person, and that person has to harness the dragon. So he tries to approach this baby dragon. He can't do it. The dragon's having none of it. Lawrence is like upset because he's like, oh, we don't know enough about what we're supposed to do, and now we're going to lose this major player. Like, it's, you know, this is a big deal. And the dragon just looks at him and says, why are you so upset? You look unhappy. And basically he's like, oh. And what ends up happening is he ends up harnessing the dragon. And so his life completely changes because he goes from being a Navy man to being a dragon handler. And it's really cool. And she does such an amazing job of getting the historical details right and kind of the society details right and the way things kind of shake up. And she makes William Lawrence, the dragon handler, the captain, she makes him uptight, but in a lovable way. Like, you understand he's got a really strong code of honor. He really feels very strongly about right and wrong. And so sometimes that can make him a little bit stuffy, but because she writes him so well, you kind of like that about him. You just enjoy the fact that he is like wound a little bit tight, and that's okay. So the whole series is amazing, but His Majesty's Dragon definitely is a strong, strong book. It's a great way to start out. And if you enjoy alternate histories, if you enjoy dragons, if you enjoy books with like complicated plots, there's a lot of stuff going on. And there's people that don't particularly like that William has taken. And the dragon's name is, I'm going to say it wrong, Tamir. But basically, he named him after a ship. And there's a lot of people who don't like the fact that he's got this dragon. So there's a lot of politics in there too, and action, because they have to train to fight. So it's a really good novel. It's His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novak.
Well, if I remember right, isn't this the book that you actually got one in the series signed from the author?
I did. I won a contest a couple of years ago with one of the middle books. I forget which one. And I got to send someone a copy for free of His Majesty's Dragon, and then I got the latest copy and got a signed copy. So, I mean, it's always a good thing to sign up with Goodreads or whatever and get some of these contests, because I was excited to get the new book for free, and then I got to share it with a friend, so that was pretty cool. That's
awesome. Now, I know this is going to be a little bit of a weird callback, but when you described these books to me, I haven't read them, but when you described these books to me, it really kind of reminded me, of the Anne Rice vampire series, because of the fact that Anne Rice was so good with the historical background. You really felt like you were in France in 1750, and oh, by the way, there's vampires, and it was just so natural the way she did it. And it seems like Naomi Novak did the same thing with dragons, that it seemed like they belonged there.
And really what I like about Naomi, how she handles stuff, is the first book is just kind of their story and, you know, how they get together. But she handles a lot of these really complicated things. Like, she handles slavery, she handles the kind of the way Europe was set up and how like they were fighting, but why were they really fighting? She handles a lot of beautiful things from the Napoleonic Wars in a beautiful way, and you understand, like, she makes those historical points that even though they're different because they're involved with dragons, you still get a really good idea of who these historical people are, and it's really enjoy. It's just so enjoyable to get that perspective from someone who obviously has studied and knows what they're talking about. And it's just fun to read. They're just so much fun to read. The relationship between dragon and rider is really cool. It's different than, like, I don't know if you guys have ever read the Thurn series. I love the Thurn series, but they're the dragons and riders have this telepathic link, but that's not the way it is in His Majesty's Dragon. Like, they have to talk through everything. And it's so cool to kind of see their relationship build, and dragons' understanding of humans and humans' understanding of dragons. Because dragons are definitely their own thing in this book. They don't necessarily think the way that humans think, and I like that too. So it's a really excellent series. I think everyone would enjoy it.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks, Jen. My movie today is called Don Verdean. It was written by Jared and Jerusha Hess of Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre fame, and then also directed by Jared Hess. It was produced by Sam Rockwell, who also plays the lead, Don Verdean. And this is a really just fun movie, especially if you grew up with any kind of Christian or Bible background.
And I have to say, I love this movie. I need to break in and say I love this movie. It was so good.
Yeah, 10 seconds into this movie, I realized I'm going to watch this movie every day that I can, because it's just such a great movie. Like Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre before it, I want to memorize every line in this movie. But like I was saying, if you have any kind of religious or Bible background, especially, this movie is going to be really funny to you. The movie starts out with this 80s looking like VHS tape playing saying, Don Verdean has been doing the Lord's work recovering biblical artifacts since 1975. And right there I was like, yep, I like this movie. So basically what happened is this archaeologist named Don Verdean, very kind of simple guy, glasses, kind of nerdy looking.
And the thing I like about this movie is that I was worried when I started watching. I'm like, are they going to make this guy a shyster? Like, are they going to make him a con artist from the beginning? And what you really realize in the first couple minutes of the movie is this guy is completely sincere. Like, he's not making big bucks off of the situation. He basically lives in this crappy mobile home. Like, I liked that a lot because I was worried they were going to make him like, he makes billions of dollars off of these people's faith. But that's not really what it's about, and I like that.
Yeah, really, it looks like from the possessions that he has, at least in the movie, like, it looks like pretty much the only money he's getting is to funding his digs. He's did, at the first, 20 years of his career, really authentic biblical archaeology. He actually found, Philistine scissors that, could have been the ones that cut Samson's hair and so on and so forth, and found, these really cool finds.
Yeah, he basically, his whole ability to speak and write books and do videos is based on the fact that he's found these scissors that could possibly be the scissors that were used to cut Samson's hair. They're Philistine scissors. And that's the only thing he's ever really found. A little, maybe pottery shards and stuff. So it's like, you got to picture, he found those in, 1985. So he really doesn't have anything current going for him. And he just kind of goes from, public library and church to church talking about finding these scissors, and his career is kind of winding down. I don't think he's really upset by that as much as he wants to be able to do more.
Yeah, and there's a really good complimentary cast in this movie. Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords plays an Israeli archaeologist. He's just really great in this movie. Will Forte has a really cool, I don't know, I would call it an extended cameo. He plays a converted Satanist preacher.
He does a really good job.
He's really funny in this movie too. Again, Sam Rockwell's playing it really straight in this movie, and it just comes off really touching and genuine. And I really don't want to spoil the plot of this movie, but a lot of stuff happens that kind of challenge him and what he's doing, and he has to make some decisions. And it's a fantastic movie though. Really well done. Like I said, it's right up there with Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre for me.
I just laughed this whole movie, and the tension about what was going to happen was real tension for me. Normally, I don't like movies that are caper movies. Sometimes I'm not really invested in what's going to happen to the characters, because I don't really care about them that much. It's like, okay, busted, not a big deal. And in this movie, I cared about what happened to all these characters. So every time things took a twist, I really cared about what happened. I genuinely liked Don. I really liked his personality. I understood his frustration and pain. And so when things were taking twists and it did not look like it was going to turn out great for him, I cared about that. And also, I laughed. This movie was so hilarious. I laughed. Jermaine Clement gives one of the best performances, and it just made me laugh so hard I cried. Now, you have to understand, too, I love Jared and Jerusha Hess. I love their movies. I even enjoy the problematic and patchy Gentleman Broncos, which is a movie that did not do well. And I think is a movie that needs to be re-edited, but I enjoy that. It was really funny. We have a local independent artsy movie house, and I kept waiting for Gentleman Broncos to come out near us. I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and it just was not. And so I called them to see if they were going to have it, and then of course they didn't answer their phone because they're an art house movie theater, so why would they do that? And so I emailed them. Got back the snottiest email I've ever gotten in my life. It was essentially like, this movie is terrible. The reviews are terrible. It was basically you are a terrible person for asking for this movie. Why would we ever get this movie? And I'm like, because I enjoy these directors and writers and I want to see it. We did eventually see it. And like I said, there's parts I really enjoy. I feel maybe it could be benefit from a re-edit, but we enjoy Jared and Jerusha Hess.
Yeah, and Mike White was in that one. He was really good.
Yeah, but I have to say this movie stands on its own, and I don't know, I can't tell. Russ and I, with the backgrounds we have, these are the kind of VHSs we would see popped in at homeschool groups and stuff. So I don't know. I feel like it would carry over to anything because it's just hilarious. But especially if any kind of background with that, I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, and the thing I really appreciate about Jared and Jerusha Hess is that everything is so character driven. If you think about Napoleon Dynamite or even Nacho Libre, the relationships, there's really only 3 or 4 pivotal relationships, and that's why the movies have such an emotional weight to them. And this is, again, Don Verdean is another movie that's like that. There's really only 3 or 4 key relationships in his life, and the whole movie's just playing off of those really well. So Don Verdean, it's on Netflix right now. Check it out.
All right, my movie is also a Hess movie, but it's mostly a Jerusha Hess movie. I don't think Jared had anything to do with it. It's Austenland, which came out in 2013. Now, I loved the book that this is based on. I really enjoyed it, but the movie does such a fantastic job, and I really feel like if you haven't seen it, see it. I don't know where you can find it, but see it. I don't think it's on Netflix right now. Basically, the movie stars Kerry Russell, J.J. Field, Jennifer Coolidge, Brett McKenzie, Jane Seymour in a fantastic part for her. And basically, Kerry Russell is just kind of probably, I guess she's supposed to be early to mid-30s. I'm not really sure of her age range, but basically she's a single lady. She's obsessed with Jane Austen, and particularly she's obsessed with the PBS version of Pride and Prejudice, which is obviously fantastic. She's obsessed with that. And so what's kind of happened is she's had a lot of romantic disappointments. Just things that didn't go anywhere. Like literally tons of dating mistakes. And never finding a guy that really treated her as well as Mr. Darcy did. Of course, he was kind of rude. But basically, nothing that would ever remotely play out like a Jane Austen novel. And her friends have kind of got married. Her best friend is married and pregnant. And she's just kind of like, you need to let this fantasy go. Like, you need to let this ideal go, but life just keeps disappointing her so much. She just keeps going back to it. You know, she's a bad situation where she dated a guy at work one time, or no, she doesn't want to date him, and he literally says to her, "What else you got going for you?" in the most depressing way possible. And it's just like, oh. So you just kind of see her just make this decision about this place that basically lets you for a week or however long you pay to play out this Austen fantasy. It's in England, and they have this huge mansion, and they provide all these clothes, and basically you get to pretend that you are in Jane Austen's world. And there's actors playing the guys, and she just decides she's just going to go for it. She gets sucked in. She goes to like this terribly seedy travel agent that shows this like kind of wonky VHS video about it, and she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. Like, when am I going to have an opportunity to do this for myself? And I'm just going to get out of my system. I'm going to play out my Jane Austen fantasy, and I'm going to get it out of my system. And she basically puts all of her savings into this huge trip. And the thing I love about it is there's such a thing with fandoms where, you know, other people don't always understand, like when you're a super fan of something and they don't get why it's so important to you. And I really feel, and sometimes those things can get in the way of your real life. And it's really interesting to see, like, she goes to this place, they give her like a couple dance lessons. Unfortunately, she finds out she's only gotten the copper package, which means she gets the crappy brown dresses and doesn't get to wear the amazing dresses she wants to wear. And she sort of realizes that even in her fantasy, she's taking a back seat. Like, she's kind of invisible, even in her own fantasy. So there's so much about this movie that's just amazing and hilarious. Jane Seymour plays the lady who runs the place and does the best job of just being a stone cold lady who's just going to stare you down and take you down. She's a fantastic job. Jennifer Coolidge plays another lady there, because there's several people there at the same time kind of living out this 24/7 Renaissance fair, except Regency era Jane Austen fantasy. And she's hilarious because she's just there to be there. Like, she doesn't even like the Jane Austen books, and she is hilarious. And it's just so many funny moments and just great moments. And especially if you grew up with Jane Austen like I did, which most girls in my class like read Jane Austen. We all read Jane Austen. And if you've ever watched the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice, you just kind of sucked into this world. It's so much fun. Just watch what happens when you actually get what you think is your fantasy and how that's going to work out. And like the difference between, like, you're playing against these other actors and like, what are you saying that's real? What are you saying that's fake? Is it all pretend? Like, how can you even tell? Which I feel like in real life sometimes, like, is this person meaning what they're saying? Or are they just saying, like, it's very interesting. And I enjoyed it. I laughed a lot. I went with my friends for my birthday and I laughed a lot. So definitely, if you get a chance to see Austenland, I think it's probably available on Amazon or someplace, but I really enjoyed it. And actually, I think it plays across. I mean, I don't think you have to be a girl to like it. I think anyone can like it.
I was going to say, Jen kind of roped me into watching this movie with her. going into it, I wasn't real excited about it, just because the way that it looks, the packaging on it looks very like, oh wow, we're going to be strapping in for 2 hours of pain here. I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. Of course, I really like Brett McKenzie. I like Jane Seymour. I really like Jennifer Coolidge. So there's a lot more humor in it than I thought there would be. I enjoyed the way that the story unfolded. I really did enjoy this movie.
One thing I really love about this movie is they kind of make you fall in love with this character, and you're just willing to go there with her. Like, you're willing to face the humiliation. Like, she, at the airport, when they come to pick her up, she's like dressed in like this, what could only be called some sort of weird Little House on the Prairie outfit, because she's got this like crazy bonnet on, and she just realizes the second she gets out there, like, this is a terrible mistake to wear this, but she does anyway. Like, there's so many things she does that are like humiliating, but you just feel for her, because like we've all done stuff like that or all felt that way, and it's just a really enjoyable movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Russ.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. My game today is a little bit of a cautionary tale.
Oh no.
This is something I haven't even told you. I was saving it for this moment. So first of all, let me talk about Amazon Underground for a second, which is Amazon Underground is a really cool, I don't know whether you call it an app or whatever it is, but it gives you games that used to cost money for free. So for instance, I got Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for free through Amazon Underground.
And to be clear, they don't pay us or do anything with us
Nope.
at all. We're not big enough for them to even notice
Nope.
us. But just to be clear, like, no one's paid us to say anything at any time, anywhere,
I just
any
talk
place.
about stuff I like at this point. If Amazon Underground wants to pay us to say Amazon Underground is great, it'll be very easy because I already think it's great.
Yeah.
I got DuckTales, the Nintendo game, on my phone for free through Amazon Underground. So anyways, so there was this opportunity that it showed, and I was so excited that I ran right to Jen and said, look, Jen. And what I told her is, look, Jen, there's a Peter Jackson game for free on Amazon Underground. I thought Peter Jackson, the director of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, had made a game. It looked very, had a map on it. It looked very Middle-earthy. And so I just, for whatever reason, so then I realized as I looked at it later, it is not Peter Jackson. Then it said it's a game by Steve Jackson. So then I got really excited and I said, Jen, I messed up. It's not Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings guy. It's Steve Jackson, the guy who made the game Munchkins. And so I was really excited. I downloaded it. I started playing it. It's super awesome. It's called Sorcery. The Sorcery series by Steve Jackson, and then I looked it up to do it for the podcast, and I realized it's not even that Steve Jackson. So not only is it not Peter Jackson and not Steve Jackson of Munchkin fame, it is Steve Jackson, the man who wrote the Fighting Fantasy Canon in 1983, which is a role-playing game, sort of like Dungeons & Dragons. I don't want to say it's too similar because then Dungeons & Dragons fans will be offended, and then, Sorcery fans will be offended. There are supposedly and supposed to be 4 games in the Sorcery series, each taking a different part from that Fighting Fantasy Canon. So again, I got the first Sorcery game for free. I went through that. I beat that. I got to the end, asked me if I wanted to upload my character to the cloud, which I did. I got the second Sorcery game for free again on Amazon Underground. I think they're supposed to be like $4.99 a piece, so I was really excited. And so I was able to download my same character into game number 2, had a great time, got all the way to Carre, enjoyed that so much. So the first game was the Shumanti Hills, the second one is the Road to Carre. Finished that one, uploaded my character, so excited, and then I saw Sorcery number 3, which is the new one, just came out, and that you had to pay $4.99, and I thought, I've got all this for free. I have no problem paying $4.99 for this game. It was a fantastic game. If I have to pay $4.99 for the third, and then the fourth one that's coming out next year, so be it. I paid $4.99 for it, downloaded it, or attempted to download it, and then I realized that it doesn't work on the Amazon Fire.
No!
So just to reiterate what I said, so Amazon Underground, which is only available on Amazon devices, had number 1 and number 2 for free. And then number 3, which was for purchase, do not work on Amazon devices.
Oh no!
I have no idea why this is. I've sent them an email. I've told them about this. There's a million people who have said, why would you put it on Amazon Underground if you couldn't finish the series out?
Yeah.
Because the whole point of Amazon Underground, I believe, is to get you excited about these game designers and so that you'll buy more of their stuff, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And to this day, I'm really excited to play Sorcery number 3, and I can't do it. So I don't know what to do at this point, but again, the number 1 and number 2, fantastic games. I cannot vouch for number 3, but I'm sure it's really cool. But it's really fun. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of making decisions on what paths you want to take. So, for instance, this one time, like really early into the trip, I lost all my gold and my food. And so I went hungry the entire trip.
Oh my gosh.
Because pretty much anytime I said yes to eating something, it wound up being poison or something. It's not good. There's a variety of ways to die in this game, and I did all of them, I believe.
I remember you when you were playing the first one, just being like, look how beautiful this is. And then 5 minutes later, like, I died again!
Mm-hmm.
I died again! Like, it really drove you crazy, but you were enjoying yourself, apparently, dying over and over again, which I can identify with.
Yeah, I mean, the music is beautiful. They actually got the United States Army Drum Corps to do the music. It's beautiful music. Like, when you beat it and the credits come up, I just turn the music all the way up because it's gorgeous. It's a really good-looking game. It's really fun. There was one time that I rescued this fairy, and I was all excited. I'm like, this fairy is going to do all this magic for me and all this cool stuff. And it wound up being that if you had the fairy, you couldn't do any magic.
Oh,
not
no.
your own. And you would ask him, like, fairy, should I go left or right? And he goes, I don't know. You're the boss. You're the one that rescued me. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. A fairy that needs rescuing probably isn't going to be that powerful. I didn't think about it at the time. I was just so excited to get a magical creature. And that's what I liked about this game. Like, there's so many other games, like, you rescue a fairy, and all of a sudden now you've got a fairy on your team. And I did, but it was not a good thing. But that being said, the spells page was beautiful because it sort of takes you up into the night sky, and it has these letters that are like in a rotating globe, and it's a beautiful game. And again, like I said, the first 2 games, I just kind of powered through them and enjoyed them, and you can go back and play them and be different characters and different things. But it was really fun. The fighting is really fun. But again, like I said, I can't play number 3. I've paid for it and I can't play it. So
I really like the spell dynamic on there because you use like letters. You have to type in letters for each spell. You kind of have to remember them, or do you?
Yeah, you do have to kind of remember them, but they are also very intuitive. So L-I-T is light.
Okay.
L-O-K is unlocking a door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so they are intuitive to a certain extent. And so there's basic spells, and then there's spells that you need to have items to combine with to make the spell. So yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool game. The Sorcery series by Steve Jackson.
Not Munchkin, and also not Peter Jackson.
That's right. So you can get the first 2 free, like I said, on Amazon Underground. And the third one, get it on a non-Amazon device.
Cool. So my game today is Thurn and Taxes, which Thurn and Taxes is this really cool little game, and you don't really hear too many people talk about it. But for me, it's a super fun game. It's basically like if you're trying to build post office routes across Bavaria, and it's basically a mini history a little bit of how the post office started in Germany. And Germany was originally a bunch of little countries and later got consolidated into Germany. Anyway, so the point of the game is you're trying to get these little tiles that have cities on them that allow you to take a route. You have to have at least 3 to do a route, and basically there's all these different regions. So when you do your route, let's say you have 3 cities in a row, you turn them in, you get your kind of your money or whatever, and then you have to figure out, you can only there's rules about how many little postal carriages you can put out, and that's what gets you points. So you can either do, like, it's like, oh, you can put 1 in each region, or you can do 2 in one. Like, there's specific rules depending on what you're doing, and what you're trying to do is have the most points at the end. And basically that depends on, there's points you pick up along the way. Like if you have a postal carriage in each region, then you get points if you're first, and it's kind of diminishing returns. Like the first person, I think, gets like 7 points for doing that. The second person only gets like 6 points. It goes down relatively quickly. So you kind of have to do things first, and you can't do everything. You can't follow every single strategy because you don't have enough postal carriages to do that. So you have to figure out, A, what you're going to go with, B, what everyone else is going with, because you're going to have to change it up. And it's really fun and a different way to play. And the rules are just, it's not hard to learn how to play, but the gameplay is different than anything else I've played before. You kind of get to pick guys like to help you, and you also have, there's so many different ways to get points. It's hard to describe without showing you the board. But it's fun, and everyone kind of likes to play. And even if you're just kind of puttering around figuring it out, you still get to do a lot of fun stuff. And it's just really enjoyable to watch. It's a beautiful looking game, too. The board's beautiful, the guides are beautiful, and it's just fun to play around with that concept. And it's different than, like, Ticket to Ride, where you have to lay out your trains from one city to the next and you have to fill in all the things. It's basically like you just kind of deciding where you're going to put these little routes. And I like this game a lot. Russ and I play this game a lot with my parents, actually, because they're the ones who own it. But it's super fun. And if you like games that are sort of about, I don't want to say like systems, but if you like games where there's a variety of different ways to win, and how you want to win is sort of based on what you like to do and what the other players are doing, because if too many players do one thing, then it's not going to work well. And if you sort of resign yourself to the fact that part of the game is luck, because we flip up these city tiles, and whatever you have available to choose from on your turn is what you have available. I mean, there's things you can do. You can clear out the board once. There's things you can do. But basically, you may be, you're like, I have all these cities in my hand. I just need one more city. I want to complete this big route. And you may not be able to do it. As long as you kind of understand that, it's just really fun. I enjoy it. I like the theme a lot, too, which is not something you think about as early post office systems. But to me, it's an enjoyable time.
Yeah, I really enjoy this game. I like the variety of the ways that you can win. I've won using a variety of strategies. I've also lost using a variety of strategies. Yeah, everybody's kind of doing a different thing, and you're not always quite sure at first what strategies people are employing. And one of the aspects I really like, too, is that the power can swing pretty quickly. If someone's in the lead, it doesn't mean they're going to win. Every time that you're doing a route, if you can't continue doing that route, your whole route gets wiped out, and that is tough.
Yeah, it says you lay things down in front of you. I guess I didn't describe this well. You don't get to lay, it's not like trains where you get to lay out the whole thing at once. You have to start building it in front of you. And there's points where it's like, okay, I have 4. I could cash it out now and complete my route and complete a route. Or if I get this tile or this tile, I can keep going. Because once you set down those tiles in front of you, you can't switch them around. So if you set down this city in the middle and then the 2 other cities on the other sides, they have to be touching on the board. Like, it has to be an actual route. You can't switch those around later if you want to. They're stuck that way. And like the next time, if you don't cash it out, you have to put down another tile that either goes on either end. That city has to connect to the other city you're putting down. So it makes it interesting because there's that gambling aspect too, because you're like, man, if I get 7, I'm going to get a big amount of points. I'm going to get the large route points, get these other points. But then you do that and you're like, oh, crud, I can't complete this. And you might have to trash the whole thing.
The other thing I like about it is the scoring aspect, which is when you complete a route, then you have to make a decision whether you want one carriage in each region that you did or in one color.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting. So it's like if you do 2 grays and 2 oranges and 2 reds, you could do 1 in gray, 1 in orange, and 1 in red, or you could do 2 in gray. It's mind-boggling all the choices. And it all depends on what you want to do. And it's some of the regions are really hard to get to. So it's a fun game. It doesn't take terribly long to play. I'd say it takes about an hour. It's a nice quick game.
Yeah, and if you have people that are taking quick turns, it doesn't even take that long. And hopefully you can convince people not to take long turns. Guys, if you're sitting there for a long time agonizing over a decision, you're probably not fun to play games with.
Well, the one thing I really like about this game, I think about this quite often actually, is you have the opportunity to wipe the whole board, and so you have different options. I always think about that in life. It's like, okay, my choice is this month, pay the electric bill, fill up the car with gas, or get groceries. I'm going to wipe the board, and now the choices are win $500, win $300, or win $100. And I've always thought about that. What a great opportunity to do that in life. Just wipe all the choices away and get new choices. But yeah, it's a really fun game, and we really, really enjoy it.
So that's all our games and books and movies. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. It was really fun. Go out and talk to other people at PAX that also enjoy podcasts and also enjoy game streaming and also enjoy board games. So that was really a fun time. You can find me on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming 3 nights a week now, and I'm probably going to start upping that from there. But I stream Mondays, Thursday nights, and Saturday nights. Saturday nights, I do Heroes of Might and Magic, which is a really fun game. That's like more a long-term game. On Monday and Thursday, I play retro games, usually point-and-click adventure games, but I'm not necessarily locked into that. So you can find me at Twitch at Jen with Glasses. I'm also on Twitter at Jen with Glasses. So please, take the time to follow and comment, and if you like it, Our email address for the podcast is bookmoviegamepodcast@gmail.com. Please send emails and tell us what you think if you watch these movies. I know Russ had a disagreement with his friend about Sphere because his friend sent him an email, and like a personal email, not a movie game email where we would read it. And basically said, I love you. The podcast is great. Sphere is a terrible movie. That's what he said.
And also, Jen put a variety of pictures from PAX on her Twitter, so you can check those there.
Yeah.
There's pictures of me and her doing cool and various and sundry things there. So
thank you guys so much, and I hope you continue to enjoy our podcast, and we'll see you next time. And Russ isn't doing a catchphrase. I don't know what to do.
Thanks for listening to Book Movie Game.
Absolutely.